Hello again, I'm Mike, and this is Keepers of the Word. Today's topic is Physical Transmutation and the Craft, with special guest Cesar Rubio of Masonic Muscle and the Masonic Muscle podcast. Let's get this started. Cesar, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you for having me, Mike.
Of course, man. So why did you get started with the Masonic Muscle podcast or the Masonic Muscle in general?
As I said before in another podcast that I was on Whence Came You. It was pandemic driven, man. When the pandemic started, right away I realized, man, if we just begin to just lay down and sit at our houses, don't get out and get some movement, we're just gonna blow up, and get even bigger. And and the way we were being attacked, on the TV, and I say attacked, right, because we were just being bombarded with all kinds of information. We got to get out there and we got to, get some air, get some sun, get some exercise. And if you're a Mason, what a better time to think about, Freemasonry as you're getting physical movement in, getting the blood circulating, and thinking about what you want your lodge to be once we're able to get back in the lodge room. So why not start a podcast where we talk about, the mysterious origins of Freemasonry, but at the same time, while we're getting a great pump, or getting the blood circulating, getting some cardio in, and doing some positive things. So that's the reason why I started Masonic Muscle.
Well, it sounds like it was really good motivation then, because it went in a positive direction. I feel you're really helping the craft by inspiring other people to see themselves in a physical way, which a lot of us don't do, unfortunately, and it's something that I've lacked on. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, but it's very, very important to think about your health as well. How is alchemy, fitness, and the craft related?
Well, I mean, just think about it, man. When we're working out, whether you're walking or you're weightlifting or whatever type of physical activity you take, what are you doing? If you're weightlifting, you're transforming your fat into muscle, right? You're changing your physiology and metabolism. You're changing the function of the muscles, the organs, the brain. Our neurochemistry is transformed through this fitness and activity. You begin to feel better as a result of these processes. The dopamine gives you the feeling of accomplishment. It begins to flow. You begin to think better. And then you begin to think about, wait a minute, haven't I read some of this stuff before, like in these Hermetic books or these Masonic books, where some of these authors try to make this as above, so below connection, right? The Hermetic astrology, right? Each zodiac sign is connected to an organ or a part of our anatomy. Right. And all this too is affected by what we eat, how much water we drink. All this stuff is happening. And so this is the reason why I even bring something like that up. Now, that's why.
Are there any religious paths or spiritual paths that you practice along with the physical?
Well, I'm Catholic and also a Freemason. But as a kid, my dad encouraged me to study other religions. We would talk about other religions. He had a fascination with the Hindu yogis and the Tibetan monks. So we talk about that and the power of the mind and, the importance of meditation. So those were kind of, inculcated in me. And especially when I began to play sports and, I began to get into these like these deep focused states. I would remember about my dad's talks and what meditation was. And so if those are spiritual practices, then yeah, those are the ones that I practice, deep meditation, deep focus. And I think about a lot about those yogis or Tibetan monks, these stories, fantastic stories that you would hear about them, what they were able to do through these spiritual practices that they had. But also I found a lot of those in Catholicism as well. And with some of these monks, these miraculous things and stories that you would hear from the Benedictine monks, the Cistercian monks, which I talk a lot about in a lot of my podcast episodes. So that's sort of like a roundabout way of saying what kind of spiritual practice I'm combining with all this.
Understood. Growing up, who were your influences and what made you go down the path of sports?
Oh, my dad. I mean, my dad. The big influences were my dad and mom. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she was the disciplinarian, and she was hard, man. I mean, she taking no shit from nobody, and you better do it right and get your chores done. But my dad, on the other side, he was a boxer, so he began to train me in
Ah,
boxing, and so I got a taste of what that discipline was and how hard it was. And boxing's tough, man. I mean,
go
you're
three
gonna punch
minutes,
and you're
man.
gonna get punched.
Yeah,
There's no way around it. Yeah, and as a kid, I think I reached 1 minute of just sparring, and that was tough, man. I mean, that was trying to keep the gloves up, and your shoulders are burning. It was
yeah,
so yeah. 3 minutes, yeah,
you're
you're
huffing
in
and
some good
puffing.
shape.
I think the
Yeah.
real hard part is understanding that there's somebody in front of you who wants to beat you up, and you're gonna get hit. And I think that's
Now my dad said, "Hey, yeah, hey son, you're gonna hit, you're gonna get hit, and that's just the
and you
way
got
it
to
is.
keep
There's
going.
no way
Yeah,
around it."
you got to keep
Yeah.
going because a lot of people get
Yep.
hit and they stop and they don't want to do it anymore. But you know what? That's a part of
Yeah.
this. I think a lot of people would benefit mentally just sparring in
Yeah.
general, man, because
Yes.
it releases things inside you, things that you're holding on
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and it tests you. Yes, you're right.
A while back I used to get spar with some friends and have them kick my ass, and I felt great afterwards. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where boxing or just contact sports in general, man, where you're taking yourself outside of your norm and doing something that is going to challenge you physically, spiritually. Uh, it's just going to challenge you, and there's no liars in the ring, man. That's one thing that always stuck with me. You're going to find out who you really
Hmm.
are in there, and that is one of those truths that you face. So I appreciate that.
Another thing I want to add to that, what you're saying, Mike, is that if you're being trained correctly, and I think most teachers are that way, you're being taught how to be humble
Right.
because you're being taught something that's going to hurt, something that could potentially hurt someone really bad, but they're also being taught to do something that can potentially hurt you really bad. So you begin to develop this respect, for your opponent and for other people because you don't know what they know.
Yeah.
So you can be all tough on the street, but you don't know what they know, and so you really have to temper. Yeah, I'm learning how to box or grapple or whatever, but um, you have to respect that other person for who they are. And isn't that what Freemasonry is teaching us as well? Some humility
Yes.
and respecting that other man,
Check your
and
ego.
because you don't know what the other man knows or what he's been through or anything like
Right.
that.
Being on the level, checking your ego. You know.
Yeah.
Um, how did your Masonic journey begin? When did that start, and how did you become a Freemason?
Well, my Masonic journey started 21 years ago at Palm Springs Lodge. I was initiated, passed, and raised starting in
Oh,
2001,
you've been
I
around a
believe.
while.
But before that, I had read books on Freemasonry starting back in 1994. Um, I was reading books, but not about Freemasonry, but because I was reading books on the Rosicrucians, on Order of the Golden Dawn, and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And so you would hear these names, Freemasons and OTO, like who the hell are these guys? But I wasn't reading about them. I didn't want to learn about them. I wanted to learn about the Rosicrucians or someone like that. And then later on, somewhere like in '96, I found this book by Graham Hancock called "The Sign and the Seal," which was about the Ark of the Covenant. Where is it at? And so he talked a lot about Freemasonry in there and how they're, might be the keepers of this
Hmm.
relic. And then I think in '96 around there is when the Hiram Key came out. Christopher Knight and Robert
Yeah.
Lomas. I read that, and then from there I found a book by William Wilmhurst, the meaning of masonry. And I began to just stumble upon these things, but it wasn't until like 2000 or 2001 that I knocked on the door, and that's when my journey began.
And do you guys have Masonic education at your lodge?
Yes, we do. We have Masonic education at Palm Springs Lodge, and we even have our charitable contribution to the community, which is our Trivium discussion group, um, which is based on the Socratic method,
Hmm.
right? Questions, and it's based on just asking questions. Man, we pose a question and we chew on that thing, And depending on what the topic is, at the very end, we're going to tie it into what does this have to do with Freemasonry. Now, inside the lodge room, though, every stated meeting, we have a piece of Masonic education. And every time, like right now, tonight is lodge night. I'm supposed to be at lodge. I'm the officers coach. And I before every rehearsal, I give a Masonic education, whether it's 3, 5, or 7 minutes on some part of what we're doing. Tonight, we're practicing on the fellowcraft degree. So I would naturally give some kind of Masonic education on the fellowcraft degree, 3, 5, or 7 minutes. So yes, we have Masonic education almost every time we meet.
Do you guys cover topics or paths that are not related to the craft?
All the time, because eventually, that's a good question, because what you're going to find is that eventually you may think it's not related, and then all of a sudden you begin to read more on that topic, and you find out that one of the top guys was a Mason, or one of the founders of that movement or whatever. His dad was a Mason, so it's somehow related to Freemasonry, and that has been a trip to a lot of prospects and members alike. So, but yes, we do talk about stuff that is not related to Freemasonry directly. Yes.
Were there any topics that you feel were very controversial that kind of got out of hand?
Yeah. Hell yeah. One time we gave and I was a culprit of that. But I didn't know. Back in 2010, we held a constitutional observance, because, in California, every September is Constitutional Observance Month. And the Grand Lodge will issue a proclamation. I hear the by and hear ye and all this, and therefore I declare, it's Constitutional Observance Month. And every lodge should have some kind of constitutional observance or education, right? So we gave one. But mine, turned from, the founding fathers, they weren't exactly who you think they were. These guys, during the Constitutional Convention, they were getting drunk, they were high, they were smoking their hemp. They had different types of hemp, and they were about it. And, they were going hard. And so a lot of people didn't like that. And then they didn't like the part where we talked about the money, and how today it's extended to the Federal Reserve, and how they have control of our money making machinery, not our treasury. And so, I mean, that brought up a lot of heat.
A lot of politics
down on
involved,
us.
Huh?
Well, I mean, you can say politics, but the mechanism of making money begins to control politics. The mechanism of making money is a complete alchemical thing on its own, right? But it can buy a party, it can buy this candidate because you control how much money you print. That's what's happening right now with all this inflation, and they're trying to control it by printing more money. So it got heated, man. It was good. I like
it. I actually like those type of conversations, because we're able to see many different views that you didn't, see before.
Yeah.
And to have discussion like that, it's healthy, as long as it's respectful. It's healthy.
Yes.
How would you describe your lodge culture to, say, somebody coming in who's about 22, 23 years old?
Our lodge culture is pretty dynamic, man. Right now, we just gave out, so we gave out 3 applications, and we have about 20 prospects on deck.
Wow.
Because of the engagement. Yes, because of the engagement. So you tell me what our lodge culture is, right? What does it take to do this?
Work.
Well, a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of time, a lot of follow through, a lot of follow up, and giving. Let's face it, man. Most lodges, they don't spend enough time trying to figure out as a group, whether it's 5 or 10 people, what are we going to do going forward, and how are we going to do this, and are we going to stick to it? And if we see something not working, are we going to pivot on a dime and continue to move forward, right? But we have, where we want to go is true north. It doesn't matter how we get there. So one of the things that we decided was, hey man, one of the things that people love is to be able to come in here and once a month be able to have these trivium discussion groups, and allow them to express themselves and do it in such a way that they know that they're not going to be pounced on, that we're not going to be choking them out because, because of what they're thinking or what they're saying. Oh, you're wrong, stupid. No, there's a way to go about this, and let's explore these ideas. And you know what? That has given a lot of energy and fire to this lodge and to these guys. And you can tell when they come in, they're once they get the hang of it, because it takes like 2 or 3 months for you to get a hang of this trivium discussion group. The first time you're gonna be like, "What the hell?" Second time, like, "Oh, I gotta." Third time, like, "Oh, I'm ready. Let's do this. What's the idea? What's the question?" And there, once you throw the question, it's like throwing chum in the water, man. And these sharks just start,
Bam, here they come.
just going all over it. But there's etiquette, there's rules. They know they're not talking over each other. They're not debating. They're not doing any of that. And so that trickles over into the lodge. So our lodge culture, very professional, high expectations. If you're gonna want to be a part of the leadership, you must talk to the present leadership, and tell us what you got to bring to the table. And pretty much ask not what your lodge can do for you, but what you can do for your lodge. We know what we can do. We know what we bring to the table. What do you bring to the table? And it's not in a arrogant way. It's just that we know what it takes, and we know what we've done for the lodge, and we want to continue that. We want to continue to raise the standard.
I think you guys have a really good culture that works at your lodge. There's a lot of people who are in power or in chairs that don't know what they're doing. And it sucks because it messes up the experience for other people, and it also lessens the experience for people coming in. And when you put the right people in the right positions, you have greatness. When you put the wrong people in those positions, you have problems, man. And I see a lot of this where they hang on to those positions knowing that they're not good at them, but they still want to hang on because they want the title and they want to sound cool. And it's unfortunate that we baby this and not call it out for what it is, because I feel the craft with that type of culture would grow significantly. But it's about doing the work, and it's being real with each other, right? Like, if you're asking somebody, okay, so what do you bring to the lodge, or what type of skill sets do you have? And if that person goes, well, I do events, or I speak, I do public speaking. Okay, perfect. You have specific roles for that person. Or if they want to take on those roles, you're able to hand them over to somebody who's been doing it forever and is excellent at it, and they'll teach them. And I think that's the kind of outlook as brothers. We need to be real with each other in those aspects in order for this thing to grow.
What you're talking about here is something that I just finished talking about in my last. I've recorded a few podcasts because I was reviewing an article written by Robert Johnson. Whence Came You, and it's called "Freemasonry Isn't Dying, It's Refining." Right. So I go over it. It's real short. It's a real short article, but some of the conclusions I don't agree with, and some of them I do. What I can tell you is this. So in the business world, when you begin to study the business world, you begin to come upon these business principles, like better business practices, right? And then when the further you dig into it, the further you realize, like, oh man, these things have been known for like 500 years, 600 years. It's not nothing new, right? So better business practices. Okay, well, how come we're not applying that more to lodge? It's still the same thing. A large aspect is business, is the administrative part. But what we're looking for really, really is to improve the performance of people. And the only way to do that is to hold them accountable, hold a high standard. And when they're not meeting that standard, you hold them accountable. And nobody wants to do that because everybody's afraid of losing members. You cannot be afraid of losing members, and you cannot be held hostage by those members saying, well, you know what, if you keep doing that, I'm going to leave. Well, then leave, especially if you've agreed and you've given your word. A lot of Freemasonry is about giving our word. Your podcast is called Keepers of the Word. I mean, come on. So, hey, man, what you're saying is absolutely true. And those are symptoms of something deeper, meaning, why are you afraid of holding this brother accountable? Why? It's only going to make him better. If he takes it correctly it's going to make his ass better.
And again, it's something to echo what you just said earlier. It's about the approach, and it's how you correct somebody, or
Yeah.
it's how you
Yeah.
teach
Yeah.
somebody that'll make them better. If you just shoot down their throat how lame they were,
Nah, nah,
that's
nah.
not cool. If you're able
No.
to say, hey, you know what? Let's improve this way and go down this path, and let me show you why.
Right.
Now we've opened a dialogue, and you can see where you made your mistake yourself. Not It doesn't have to be pointed out to you. You can see it yourself and understand,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is the path I need to go down, and this is how I do it. If you don't provide instruction and you expect somebody to wing it, you're setting yourself up for failure,
Failure.
man. And what books would you recommend for new Masons?
You know what? That's a tough one. Great question. I've been thinking about this for 2 or 3 weeks now. I've got a huge library, and this question has been bouncing around in my head. And as I'm looking through his book, oh yeah, this one, no, it reveals too much. And then, this one, no, it's gonna confuse them right now. And I was listening to your guys' podcast when you guys were interviewing Jamie Paul Lamb, and I forgot who else, another, and I think it was you that was asking some of these questions regarding, or I don't know who it was, but it's a similar question, and that is, you get a new Mason, should you introduce them to the esoteric, to the occult side? And someone said, no, we might. Dude, yeah. Yes, of course, but it's in the way it's done.
Exactly.
Not, you don't just shove it down their throats. No. Okay, now going back to the book. What books would I recommend right now? You know what? There's one I recommend, but there's seems to be somewhat of pushback by some older members and some guys that just don't understand, and that's Observing the Craft. Because that gives you a clean description of, yeah, you can say, well, that's utopian. Yeah. No, that's a lodge that's functioning at optimum.
Yes, that's what we should
Everybody's
all
holding
want to
themselves
be.
accountable. You are observant, right? Well, there's no such thing as observance. Man, I'm a secretary of my lodge. And what's the first thing I say as my duty? To observe the will and pleasure of the worship. So don't tell me that there's no observance. We're observing, but that's one that I would recommend. I would recommend that Observing the Craft by Andrew Hammer. And any other one, man, I would have to really, really think about which other one I would. Freemasons for Dummies. Yeah, there's a lot in there, but Hodap, I love you, but I would not recommend that for someone that's wanting to be a Mason or that just came into the craft, not right away.
I think that one's for, you've hit your second degree, then hey, check this book out, and
yeah, something like that.
It's a lot to digest, and I think digesting it is the key.
Yep.
Where do you think you see your lodge in the next 10 years? Do you see you guys overgrowth, or do you see it on a steady build, or do you see it branching out into new areas? And what I mean by that is, you have your trivium discussion. Do you see that growing into other things?
Yes. Where do I see our lodge in 10 years? I see it thriving. I see it. We are definitely on the path to want to be registered and recognized as an observant lodge. That's number one. And part of that is that we want to cap our membership at 50.
Oh, okay.
So we want to get there, and then from there we want to continue to build any new Mason coming in and prepare them for leadership roles so that they can break off when they're ready. They can break off and form their lodge, and now we can have joint ventures together and things like that. What a great mission, right? What a great goal to be able to not only bring your lodge back up to health and make it strong, but also the guys coming in, you're already informing them, saying, hey, part of the plan for some of you is we're gonna teach you how to, we're birthing you, right? We're like we're like your dad and your mom, and when it's time, we're gonna kick you out of the nest, and you're gonna go ask for a charter, and ask for a dispensation. We're gonna be there every step of the way, and when you guys finally get it, we're gonna be there every step of the way to help you celebrate this thing. That way, we can go visit you guys on festive boards. We can drink all your wine and eat all your food, and you guys can't tell us anything because we're your daddy. So
well, that's a good model for growth. I feel you guys are on the right path. Being in, I'm actually in an observance lodge myself, and just having that for me was essential to staying in the craft, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, our past with keepers started with this because there wasn't any, and we got a lot of shit, you know, we a lot, and it kept on
I
going.
heard.
And you know, at some point I really had to think about, what do I want to see out of this for me, and what am I searching for? And I
Mm.
had to have some really deep conversations with myself as to, you know, how am I going to serve the craft, and how is the craft serving me? And then I think every Mason really needs to sit down and have that conversation with themselves, because I see a lot of people, and this was my next question was, have you ever had Masonic burnout? And I've been
Yeah.
victim of that. I've done that. And have you had it?
Yes, I think anybody that you meet and that has been actively involved in masonry, like I have since about 2005, 2006, when I began to go to the chairs, there you're gonna hear that he, whether he says it outright or not, is burnout at some level, because you just were not circumscribing your desires, your passions, and so you went too hard on this route, or you went too hard, or you went too hard on too many fronts. Right? You got to focus on the few, not the many. But because of where Freemasonry is at, um, we're forced to take on and put on many hats within a lodge, and because of that, it's easy for us to get burned out. And now we're pissed off. Now we leave. But when we leave and we begin to calm down, we realize that that's not what we were pissed off at. We weren't pissed off at what we thought we were pissed off. It's something inside of you. It's so Freemasonry works. It's been around for 300 years, probably longer, in my opinion. So whatever is going on in Freemasonry works. It's been proven time and time again. So whatever you're saying is not you. It's not the fraternity. It's you, right? Something inside of you, something internal that you haven't addressed.
Right.
And so when you do that, that's what you're talking about. Hey, more Masons need to have that talk to themselves. They need to look in the mirror, and they need to try to start defining what it is that they want out of the craft. And then once they do that, okay, now how am I going to add value? Right? Because wherever value is clear, when the value is clear, the decision is easy. So when your lodge is giving value all the time, the decision is easy to go, man. Even when you're tired and you're like, man, I've had a long day, but dude, I want to be there with my brothers, man. I want to fellowship afterwards. I want to, have break bread with them and all that, because the value is there.
Agreed. And just to reference, there's a brother by the name of Juan Sepulveda who has his podcast
Oh
called The
yeah,
Winding Stairs, and he
listen to it all the
breaks
time.
down Masonic burnout, the best I've ever heard. And hats off to the guy, man. He's actually one of those dudes who motivates me to like continue and keep going,
Yeah.
and ask more
Mm-hmm.
questions and look within, you know. So hats off to you, Juan. Thank you very much. Alchemy and Freemasonry.
Yeah.
How do you feel alchemy plays a part in the craft, physically and spiritually? Now, I know we covered this
Oh,
question earlier when
yeah.
working out, but more on a deeper level.
Well, when you read the beginnings and origins of Freemasonry, how it is now, and then you read the Anderson's Constitutions, and then you read about Dr. Anderson and all them, you learn that those guys were studying the Kabbalah, they were dabbling in alchemy, and so they never outright said that they put these allegories in there or anything like that, but you can begin to see that it's like peppered throughout. Now nobody sits down anymore and reads Anderson's Constitutions, right? I ask brothers, and no, well, we're aware of it because we're always mentioning Anderson's Constitutions and stuff like that. But when you read the mythology, hey, Adam, and he had Freemasonry in his heart, and he must have put the liberal arts and sciences in his heart and all that. You begin to read all these allegories, man, and symbols. So how is that? Well, how it's intertwined, but it's up to each and seeing. It's up to every single one of us to begin to discover that on our own. It does me no good. It does you no good to begin to point these things out to somebody and not give them the pleasure of discovery on their own, even though you already probably know it's already there, even though you already know where you've unlocked some of the keys, right? There's something, something powerful about you discovering it on your own. You might have told them, hey, look over here, and then let's read that part, and then when you meet me next week, we'll talk about it.
Yes, that part.
And then he comes back with his eyes like this, like, holy man, I read, and then you're like, there it is, the power, right, of him discovering it on his own. You didn't do it for him. So that's how I feel about that alchemy and the mystical alchemical process within Freemasonry.
An American esoteric scholar and 33rd degree Mason, Manly P. Hall, Freemasonry is a splendid camaraderie of free and accepted men enjoined to devote themselves to ethical, educational, fraternal, patriotic, and humanitarian concerns. So that was his definition of what we are. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But at the same time, I feel alchemy isn't really talked about much when it should be, because if we look back at, if we talk about ritual, right? And I'm not going to talk about ritual, but I'm going to talk about ritual.
Yes. Okay.
In the ritual, we're doing things, right? We're moving around, we're talking, we're saying things. Things are done a certain way. That is the transmutation. That is what's changing you. And if you guys have a chamber of reflection, that chamber of reflection is the beginning of the transmutation. Because by the third degree, when you sit in front of that chamber and you sit in that chamber and you're looking at the mirror, you're seeing a different person. You're seeing an evolved person. And, here in the States, I feel we have degree mills where we just push people through as quick as possible, and they're not digesting all the information, and they're not really taking it in and understanding it completely. So, to people listening or people who want to join, I strongly suggest you take your time. Take your time with the degrees and make sure you read about them as well, and see where they came from. What is actually happening to you while you're going through the degree? And why is all this happening? It's because you're in a transmutational ritual. You're changing.
Yes, sir.
You're being raised, right, to a higher level of consciousness. Now, does that happen on a physical level? For some of us, yes. There's some brothers that you see that are just high on life and great fucking people, man, and you love them. And there's some that are grumpy past masters, and to say that, the craft, it just makes good men better. Well, that good man has to choose to be better.
Yes.
So that's just my 2 cents on that. What part of the craft interests you the most?
History. The mysterious origins of Freemasonry. I mean, that's why I focus on that, because I think I was just listening to another podcast today, and they hit upon that, and they were just talking about how because our mysterious origins are just nebulous. We really don't know where this is all coming from. This is a point of real worth for us, right? Because you can study Order of the Golden Dawn. You can sort and you can kind of trace like where these guys, they were Masons. Okay, they formed, but Freemasonry is not that way. We don't know where it came from. We know Dr. Anderson got together a bunch of documents. Someone commissioned them. Someone may not have, but he got all the old documents that he could, all the charges and regulations of that time, and he put this together. And he said that some of these older lodges, that they when they found out what he was doing, that he was calling everybody and from all these older lodges. So there wasn't 4 older lodges, there was many. But when they found out what he was doing, and he was trying to collect all these, whether it's your ritual work or your constitutions or whatever it is, some of them went back home and they said, hey man, we don't like what's going on, destroy all these documents. And he talks about that. So we don't know what was in those documents now. What were they practicing and why? And it could have been state secrets. It could have been, we're we're Catholic, and if they find out we're Catholic. But that was back in 1717. That wasn't even before. It was before the papal bull,
Yeah.
of 1738. So these mysterious origins, because what you begin to find out is that there is alchemy locked into this thing. There is Kabbalah locked into this thing. There is these serious secrets of astronomy and astrology, right? Because they're tied together, locked within our ritualistic work. But where? Where is it at? Right? It's right there, right in front of us. We read it and we study it, and we're told to memorize it. But where is it? Right? It's there. So that's what I'm interested in. It's that mysterious origins of Freemasonry, because understanding that, we begin to unlock even further some of the questions that you've been asking, whether it's alchemy, whether it's Kabbalah, things like that. Yes.
Agreed. I like that answer. What are you looking forward to in the future, personally and professionally?
Well, personally, I mean, always striving to improve myself physically and mentally. All right. I got my own home gym here. I have children that are still going to school, so I'm looking forward to them improving always, and me being, a stable and solid influence in their life. At Lodge, I continue to look forward to being a pillar of strength, being a good example, even with all my faults. Continuing to contribute to the Lodge in any way I can, continuing to help, strengthen Masonic education. Professionally, I was medically retired 3 years ago. So, in essence, I've been an at-home dad, but that's not really a break, especially with two teenagers and a 20-year-old boy. But I'm looking forward to continuously challenging myself and putting myself in uncomfortable situations to force my ass to grow and not get complacent.
Agreed.
And help anybody and everybody understand that if I could do it, you could do it too.
I like that motto, because it's true. If you can do it, I can do it, and vice versa. I agree with that. So where can people find out more about Masonic Muscle?
I'm on Spotify. I'm on iTunes. If you want to write to me at masonicmuscle357@gmail.com. I'm always asking for, ideas or questions. If you want to come on the show, just let me know. Let me know what you want to talk about. I do focus on the mysterious origins of Freemasonry and physical health, and education and things like that. I try to combine those two. So if you want to talk about exercise, hell yeah, let's do it. Because in the gym, I don't know if you caught it, when we're at Masonicon, I use the example in the gym. When you go to the gym, you're given tools to build a better body.
Right.
In the Lodge, you're given tools to become a better man. They're like
intertwined,
one and the same, right? So, you go to my I call it my dungeon in my garage, and so we got kettlebells, we got chains. I call it the chain of union. We have trap bars, we have barbells, and so if you want to talk about that and how this connects to Freemasonry, yeah, write to me at masonicmuscle357@gmail.com and let me know.
Awesome, man. I look forward to it.
Hell yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, sir. I mean, what's your mother lodge?
My mother lodge was LA Harbor Lodge in San Pedro, California. That's where.
And you know what, man? It was San Pedro, California. And where are you at now, though?
I'm at Panamericana 513 at the Shrine.
Oh, you're okay. No wonder. I thought it was you. You know what, man? Because when I saw you at Masonicon, hey, man, and I meant to. I apologize, man. Here to you and all your fans, because when I saw you, I recognized you. And I was like, man, I want to go hang out with them and have a beer at the beginning on Friday when we all got there. But, there were so many people and there were so many, Masons around that you're like, God, man, if I go sit down with this dude, I'm just going to sit down with him and that's it. I'm not going to have a chance to, because I already know. Hey, you want a beer? Hell yeah, I want a beer.
Yeah.
You want a whiskey? Yeah, I want a whiskey. What kind of question is that, right? And let's shoot the shit. I wanted to pick your brain about your podcast, tell you that I listen to you guys all the time. Some of the podcasts that I enjoyed, So yeah, man. Yeah, and what was your experience at MasoniCon? I want to ask you that.
Well, I had a great experience throughout all 3 days. Um, they do a great show. They put on a really good show, and there's also a lot of fellowship. And I think that's the part
Mm,
that was really fun for me to meet some new brothers and connect on a different level, you know. And then on top of that, you had, you know, people there walking around like Mitch Horowitz and Angel Millar and, you know, all these other guys that
yeah,
I actually look up to, and
yeah.
I'm glad that they're there doing the work. But I think the first day when we had our dinner, that was very interesting. Most of the guys at my lodge haven't experienced a festive board,
The festive board.
and they had a
Yeah.
really good time, and it was super fun. And I think we all just enjoyed the hell out of it. So it was super positive, and I think I hope Dago